Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to have on back Dr. John Gartner, our psychologist, author, and founder of Duty to Warn, and now a regular guest. We have drafted him onto the show, and now as a regular guest. Doctor, good to see you, my friend. How is things?
Well, as I said, things in my life are going fine.
But the world is on fire, and
Exactly.
And you know, whenever you want, it's almost monthly now, maybe every 5-6 weeks. There's so many things to go through what Donald Trump has done that raises flags to you. And before the show, I was raising a few issues, but you said we have to talk about the press conference the day before he went to Davos, which was an hour and a half, word salad, just mess of stuff. So share why that got your attention. You're like, we got to talk this.
Yeah. So one of the things about the press conference is when people have dementia, they'll often get derailed, right? And start talking about some tangential topic that will then remind them of some other tangential topic. And then they'll just start free associating to it. And you saw this. He started the press conference, he brought some props with him, okay? So for the first 12 and a half minutes, I counted it, okay? Mm-hmm. He displayed over 40 wanted posters. Okay. And he just riffed on them in this racist way. Murder. See, probably a Somalian. You know, those Somalians are all bad. They don't even have a country. Look at this one. Oh, yeah. International murder. He meant attempted murder. Oh, look. And look at this one. Oh, okay, here. Yeah, this one's, what was the word he used? Strong-armed rape. Yeah, this one's strong-armed rape. Yeah, bad person. Yeah, we got to get these people out. You know, they're bad. And it's like this crazy thing where he's just showing pictures. It's like show and tell in kindergarten at some level. He's just like showing these pictures and then throwing the wanted posters on the floor. It's just a bizarre spectacle. And then after that, he says, we have more accomplishments than any other. Let me show you. Look at all these pages. Look at all these words. Right. All these accomplishments, and he throws it on the floor. I mean, it's like a Saturday Night Live takeoff, except it's actually not. It's reality has become farce. But the last thing I wanted to say about the press conference, also those paraphrases like strong-armed rape, and he says, "I love Hispanic." That's not a thing, right? You can't say I love Hispanic. It's like saying I love black, I love Jew. There has to be an article there.
More than one. Not singular, and there's an article. Yes, I get it.
And so, men and women's sports is dumb. There's just so many things he says that don't make any sense that we just glance over them. We've become accommodated to them, but they're hard signs of neurological decline. People that aren't suffering dementia don't make these kinds of linguistic errors. But where it shows up the most is what the press shows us the least, which is his perambulations as he goes on and on in the diatribe. You see how really thought disordered he is. So I know I've done this on your show before, but I just have a half a page that I just want to read verbatim to you, okay? And then you and the audience, you guys tell me, do you need to be a doctor to know that this person has organic cognitive decline?
All right, so let's set this up, though. Here's a reading by Dr. John Gartner.
A reading by Dr. John Gartner.
Speech at the press conference.
And the context is he's talking about, he's lying, of course, about the immigrants and how they're all coming from insane asylums. Now he's going to free associate to insane asylums. We used to have, when I was growing up, we had in my area in Queens, I grew up in Queens, we had a place called Creedmoor. Did anybody know about that? Creedmoor. It was I said, Mom, why are those bars on the building? I used to play Little League Baseball there, a place called Cunningham Park, who's quite the baseball player. You wouldn't believe it. But I said to my mother, Mom, she would be there, always there for me. She said, son, you could be a professional baseball player. I said, thanks, Mom. I said, why are those bars on the windows? Big building, big powerful building. It loomed over the park. Actually, it was, she said. Well, people are very sick in that building. I said, boy, I used to always look at that building and I'd see this big building, big, tall building. It loomed over the park. It was sort of, now that I think of it, pretty unfriendly sight, but I'll never forget. I don't know if it's still there because they got rid of most of them. The Democrats in New York, they took down the people. They took them down, and now the people live in the streets now. That's why you have a lot of people in California and other places. They live on the streets. They took the mental institutions down. They're expensive. But it says, Why does the building have those bars? Boy, it wasn't normal. You used to look at those looking at like a window, but this one, you look at all this steel, vicious steel, tiny windows, bars all over the place, nobody getting out. It's called the mental institution. That was an insane asylum.
That was an excellent reading. I'm going to give you applause. Excellent reading by Dr. John Gartner.
Thank you.
Who will be playing the role of Donald Trump today. And this is so it was entertaining / alarming. What does that say to you? What we just heard?
Well, but this is thought disorder. This is disordered speech, and this can't happen unless someone is experiencing severe organic cognitive decline. We may see this kind of word salad in severe cases of schizophrenia, but this, that's another place where we see thought disorder. But even there, it wouldn't be this necessarily disjointed. But what we're seeing is actually very typical of the thought disorder of people with dementia, which is he started reminiscing about insane asylums, and then he had a childhood memory of when he was playing in the park, but he just completely goes off, right, for a full page reminiscing, and also within his reminiscences, none of the sentences are complete, right? So he's reminiscing about something which is really tangential. Then he has another tangential thought about his possible baseball career, right? So that's from right. When he was in the park looking at the insane asylum, and then that made him think about how his mom told him he could be a professional baseball player, and you can't even follow within this screed sentences that make sense. He's breaking up the sentences. He's going back and forth. He's repeating words over and over again. Creedmoor. It was Creedmoor. Creedmoor. He does this all the time. And it's like, I used to say, in fact, when I was on this show over a year ago, before the election, I would say, what's it going to take? Is he going to have to babble incomprehensibly before people finally say there's something wrong with this guy? Guess what? I really overestimated the American people, because that's not enough. It's not enough for him to babble incomprehensibly. Somehow we can all just it's like the emperor's new clothes, or I don't know what. Mm-hmm. We're just watching this, and the press is watching this, and no one is saying anything about it. No one is talking about the elephant in the room, which is this is an incomprehensible, thought disordered jumble of words.
You wrote online, Trump's obvious neurological decay is the new big lie, and the mainstream media needs to stop being complicit. So this is what's going on. If the media doesn't amplify it, the corporate media, which has access, they're in the White House and stuff, if they don't amplify it, then it takes independent media like us to talk about it a little.
Yes.
But the ones who could really challenge him to his face don't do it. I mean, and that's what's kind of remarkable. And we've talked about this before. It's a fear of punishment from Trump, DOJ investigations, to loss of access, to being fined, to not allowing a merger, all of that. He has been able in 1 year to have more control over the press than people really, I think, want to believe.
Absolutely.
In a country like ours, we should not have this, and he does.
Well, there's two factors. One is the right wing keeps buying up the press. I don't think people realize what a buying binge the right wing has gone on. Of course, we know Elon Musk bought Twitter. Actually, a company named Liberty Media now owns a piece of CNN. CBS is now owned by Paramount, which is owned by Larry Ellison, the Ellisons. Larry Ellison, yeah. Who is a right-wing billionaire aligned with Elon Musk. They've also bought Twitter, the American version
TikTok.
I'm sorry, TikTok. Excuse me. They bought the American version.
Closed. It just finalized today, so 100% done now.
Yeah, which is horrible. So in other words, the two main social medias, right, TikTok and what was formerly Twitter, are controlled by right-wing fascist billionaires. Okay, that's a big loss. And now CBS News is controlled by the fascist right-wing billionaires. And CBS News had a long, storied history, of being a great news institution. Now they are going to be, they're going to be working for them. NPR is now dying, right? We're losing NPR because they took away their funding. And actually, they're trying to buy, Skydance, the company that the Ellisons own, has been trying to buy CNN.
CNN, Warner Brothers, which owns CNN,
Warner Brothers, which owns
Discovery,
CNN, right?
WBD,
And Netflix outbid them, but they're trying to claw back with a hostile takeover. I hope Netflix wins, because the point is, if they take over that, then they will own CNN, they'll own CBS, they'll own Twitter, they'll own TikTok. And so what's left? Independent media and MS Now.
Until MS Now someone buys it. And the idea of Netflix buying the company, don't forget, unless things shifted, their offer was not to buy CNN. It was to buy only the movie the parts, Warner Brothers, and let the cable networks be its own separate company and someone else could buy it. So the Ellisons might lose in not getting Warner Brothers the movies that they want in those properties. They might still be able to buy the cable networks. And we'll see if they want it or not, because at this point,
of course they want it. Of course they want it. It's not about money, Dean. It's not about making money. It's about making treason.
Treason. Yeah. I like that. I'm chatting with Dr. John Gartner. You do more. So, Doctor, let's talk about some things that happened at Davos and get your take on it. Because, by the way, at that press conference, Trump did confuse Iceland and Greenland once, but on Davos,
three times.
3 times at that press conference.
Yep.
But at Davos, he did it numerous times.
Oh, sorry. At Davos, he said it 3 times.
So Davos, he said numerous times. And, Carolyn Levitt said, oh, right. Told the reporter, no, you're confused. He wasn't confused and you can see his mind. It's ice. The Greenland has ice on it. So it's ice land, and,
right.
You're on the world stage saying, look, Hitler never got Czechoslovakia wrong. When he said he wanted Czechoslovakia, he stayed with Czech. No time to go. And Lithuania is going to be ours one day. We're going to march on Lithuania. It's like, no. Czechoslovakia. So when people compare Trump and Hitler, no, Hitler didn't have dementia. He was the evil, but he didn't have dementia. So,
right, but we've got a double scoop. We've got a demented Hitler who can't even remember the names of the countries he's invading.
A demented Hitler. I like Dr. John Gartner coined a new term, demented Hitler. So what does this mean to you, though? Does it mean anything from you? Is it significant from a mental point of view, mental health point of view?
Well, absolutely. It's more of these linguistic, semantic paraphrases, where he's using the word, he means Greenland, but he says Iceland. He was also on the plane coming back and he was talking about peace and he was saying, peace is ruining this world. Peace is ruining the world. He meant to say war because he's the, right. But I mean, to literally, and he said it twice, to say peace is ruining the world when you mean war is ruining the world. I mean, these are fundamental linguistic errors. He can't get through an encounter of any kind without making these gross linguistic errors. So yes, I mean, his dementia and his evil were on the world stage for all to see, and it is horrifying because it's like, what this reminds me of, if you remember the Charlie Chaplin movie, The Grand Dictator. Mm-hmm. It's this famous scene where he plays Hitler and he's got the globe, but it's sort of like a beach ball and he's just playing with it. He's just tossing it up in the air and, casually, and then in the end it pops and it explodes. Here we have the most powerful man in the world, controls the nuclear codes, no guardrails, okay? And he is an evil, demented, conqueror, Hitler type who wants to, but he's so erratic. It's like a baby. It's like a baby we're playing with the planet Earth, and just kind of batting it around, carelessly. That's why I think about that Grand Dictator, scene. It's like he's just, and a lot of these attacks we know have actually been impulsive. He attacked Venezuela because it pissed him off that Maduro was dancing on television. He said, "What the hell's that guy doing dancing? Right? What the hell does he think he is? Get him!" I mean, this is how we're making military decisions. Or he wrote that crazy letter, right, to the president of Norway, saying, "Because you didn't give me the Nobel Peace Prize, to hell with you. I'm not for peace anymore. Now I'm no more Mr. Nice Guy. Now I'm going to take Greenland." It's not even the country that controls Greenland. I mean, this is how completely off he is. And he's constantly mixing up the names of countries, even the ones he allegedly made peace with.
Right. He does repeat, and his speech at Davos, what does it say to you? It's clearly not in any text where he starts talking about the 2020 election, talks about Ilhan Omar, talks about Somalis on the stage at Davos. So he meanders and goes right back to, is this like comfort level stuff in the brain? Is this like from a psychological point of view? Because it really seems like those are the thoughts he can access. So that's
Right.
where he goes, as opposed to contributing in a more constructive way to
Right.
the point he's trying to make.
Yeah, no, I mean, in a funny way, it works for him politically because that repetition actually is a way of getting a message across. But
Sure.
you can tell he's not intellectually engaged with what's actually going on. So he just hits play on the greatest hits, you know. And some of it is also he just wants to get his message out, I think. You know, he doesn't care about the context or the people. He just wants to talk about how the election was stolen and Russian hoax. And, you know, so some of that is also just his obsession, right? His driven obsession with revenge and with vaunting himself, you know. But also it masks to some extent his cognitive decline because he just is a broken record.
Yeah. And, we talked right before you started, you said that you don't have any special insight into what the wounds are on Trump's hands. But what we do know is there's lying, because last year, numerous times, it came up, he had a bruising on his right, and Carolyn Levitt, the head liar, said, "Oh, he's shaking a lot of hands," and really, no one really bought that. And then it came out he's taking like industrial strength size aspirin, like he's got a pill the size of a pillow that he takes every day. But then in Davos, he had a huge bruise, not on the right hand, but on the left hand, and it was very big and very, very ugly. And Carolyn Levitt said, "Oh, he just hit his hand on the table that day and got that bruise." Can you add anything to what it could be within the realm of possible? Because I'm telling you, we hear people saying it's IVs for certain drugs that deal with dementia and all that. I'm like, I don't know. Is that fair?
Well, I think the thing is, I think we need to look at all of the physical symptoms that he's showing of deterioration. So that's one of them, and we don't know. We don't know what the bruise is for. We know they're lying. That much we do know, right? Because their explanation doesn't make any sense, and it changes typically. Just like we knew they were lying about the whole imaging thing, right? We never figured out if he got an MRI, where he got the MRI, why he got the MRI, or what the MRI showed. But other than that, nothing to see here, right? We don't know which cognitive tests he took, what they showed. We know he took multiple cognitive tests, which means that they probably gave him a whole battery. We know he took the MOCA 3 times, which means they're repeatedly administering it to him to monitor his dementia, not to detect whether he has dementia. You don't give someone the MOCA every 6 months, right? If they're doing fine. If you're giving it to them that frequently, it means you're trying to monitor their symptoms. And the other thing is, we really are not paying enough attention to his gait. Either from the dementia, a left-sided stroke. There's a doctor now that's saying he's certain that he had a left-sided stroke. I think he's right, or both. I think it's a combination. But remember, the right side of his face was drooping for a while. His right leg, he is sometimes vastly dysfunctional. And, they showed tape of him at Davos. He can't walk a straight line. It's because of that right leg. It's called a wide-based gait. He swings it like a semicircle. And so that's what causes him to veer off to the left of the carpet and then have to correct himself. That's a serious sign of frontotemporal dementia and or stroke. So there's all of these ways in which, and also his right arm, he's been holding it, cradling it. He couldn't flip a coin he was at a football game. He was given the coin, the coin toss. He couldn't toss it. He went like this. He went like to the coin because, and there are other times you see his right arm is sort of dangling like it's kind of dead. He's very ginger coming down the stairs. He needs both hands. He's going very slowly. I mean, we're seeing very clear. He's falling asleep all the time. That involuntary somnambulism. That's definitely a symptom of neurological decay. And even though he's embarrassed by it, and he's enraged that it's been reported on, he can't stop it. He can't stop. And we know he's only working 12 to 5.
At best. I mean, they wake him up on the plane when he's traveling. At best. I saw that. I think it's interesting that you make a point that the frequent tests that they're giving for cognition and understand what's going on, it's no longer to detect the dementia, it's to monitor it. Meaning the idea that in your view, that you think there's a confirmation he has some form of dementia.
I think that it's almost undeniable at this point. I mean, it's sort of, they keep gaslighting us, like Karen Levitt, saying he didn't say Iceland, well, it reminds me of that joke about the guy who finds his wife in bed with the golf pro and says, "Not what you think. Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes?"
Right. That's an old joke. I know that. It's very interesting.
I mean, we heard him say Iceland. We heard it. It's on tape. They're just trying to gaslight us. But all of this is cumulative. I think that his doctors wouldn't be giving him these tests with this frequency if they didn't suspect or believe that he had dementia. There wouldn't be a reason to be giving him frequent MRIs, frequent Montreal cognitive assessments. Also, he seemed to have slipped and said he did multiple cognitive tests when he was at Walter Reed, which suggests they're not just giving him a screening test.
Right.
They gave him a battery of tests, which means you don't give someone a full battery and or scan their brain unless you already have found something clinically that makes you feel that further investigation is warranted. You're ruling in a diagnosis that you're already suspecting.
So do you expect this goes forward? Because there's a line you say on my show all the time, and I even quote you. I've said it. I was on Stephanie Miller's show today, and I quoted you about today's the best day Donald Trump will be. Like today's the best you will see him because it keeps sliding. Is there any other things we should be looking for or that's consistent with more degradation? Or that should actually be alarming because I don't like Donald Trump at all. It's very clear. Everyone knows that. But I still believe the president should be the president. And if he's no longer cognitively able to do the job, I don't want Stephen Miller running more of the government than he's doing already, or J.D. Vance or whoever. So are there any signs? I mean, or do you expect them to hide him even more? Because they're already beginning to hide him. We know that. He's much less limited functions out in the public.
Well, the problem is, you're right, as he deteriorates, these nefarious characters get more power. But the other side of it is, as he deteriorates, because he has no constraints, he's going to be more erratic in his behavior, even more erratic and impulsive and destructive than he already is. And now that he's taken it to the next level, right, not just invading American cities, but invading South American countries, right, and potentially even going to war with Europe, this is what I'm really alarmed about now. At this point, and I know this sounds dramatic, and I know I joke around a lot on this show, but I want to be serious now for a minute. At this point, I think it would take a miracle to avoid the apocalypse. I sometimes joke.
Apocalypse? You mean like the nuclear apocalypse?
Yes.
Like him launching nuclear weapons?
Or some other person feeling empowered to launch nuclear weapons because America isn't keeping the peace anymore. You know what we don't realize, there's nobody alive today who has really lived through what humanity has lived through for the last 2 million years. Because the last 2 million years of human history has been constant war. Okay. We are the most spoiled and privileged generation in human history because since World War II, America and her European allies have kept the peace. Relatively speaking, we didn't have a World War III because we created an international order that punished people for invading other countries, made them into pariah states, put sanctions on them, and maintained some kind of world order with the UN and with NATO, military force, soft power, all of those things. That is evaporating. He is destroying that. Right? And he's always wanted to destroy that because I've always contended that he is in alliance with Putin. He is a traitor. He's always been a traitor. Okay, he should have been impeached for treason. That is his worst crime, even worse than corruption or sexual misconduct, etc. Okay, he's working with the enemy. Well, nothing would make Putin happier than for him to destroy NATO. And we're one step away from NATO being utterly destroyed. Right. We're one invasion of Greenland away from NATO no longer existing. Okay, what do you think the nuclear powers are going to do when they realize there is no policeman anymore? What is Pakistan going to do? India going to do? Iran going to do? North Korea going to do? Okay, so it's not necessarily that he's going to launch the missiles, but he will be responsible for them being launched. And I don't think that anyone on Earth today really gets it. I don't think it's a failure of imagination. I don't think people realize what it will be like to live on an Earth that is half radioactive. There will only be survivors. I'm not saying it's the end of humanity, but it will be like people crawling out of the shelters, right, and trying to repopulate a radioactive Earth. This will be a dystopian science fiction plot that we are heading towards, unless there's a miracle.
Well, Dr. Gartner laid it out there for us, folks. There's no apocalypse might be coming, and we're going to see how it goes. Let me ask you one question here as a psychologist to give people some help. We're being treated to some really grotesquely violent images right now from ICE.
I know.
Very, very jarring. The type that you would see usually after some horrible thing happens in a country and later in newsreels, you're like, oh my God, how come the people didn't see it? But we're seeing it in real time. And it's going to have an impact on certain people. And someone's going to weigh them down. Others are going to force them, they're going to check out. Like, I can't watch this anymore. What do you say to people to help navigate through these difficult times?
Well, I'm not sure I'm that great a comfort.
Anything that's positive. I mean, is there something we can do? And the simplest thing is, should people take time and put things in perspective? Take time, spend time with their family. Should it be, give yourself some time to check out of the intensity of politics, the way we look at it, to try to refresh and regroup, not check out. Because my fear is, I don't want people to check out. If they go, this is too much, I just can't take it. Well, they win. The fascists win when the good people check out, right? So I don't want people to leave. I want them to refresh and relax and come back fighting. I mean, is what I'm saying and what I'm prescribing here is, I'm Dr. Dean all of a sudden. Is that a decent prescription? The idea of taking some time?
Yeah, we have to titrate our exposure to the toxins, so that we can keep functioning. But at the same time, as you say, we can't give up or check out. I applaud those people who are on the streets, on a cellular level, protecting their neighborhoods against ICE. I think it's going to come down to actually block by block self-protection against this Gestapo, against his private Gestapo, his brown shirts. That's what he wants to do. Like Hitler, he wants to unleash a paramilitary on the population of his own country. That's what dictators do. So the more we oppose that, the better. I think one of the things that I'm worried about is, I think people are putting a lot of hope in the 2026 election, and I am too. I think we're going to, if it's a free and fair election, let us have it. I think we're going to win. The problem is, even if we had one or even both houses of Congress, I'm not sure that it can really stop the destructive course that we're on now, especially internationally. Because he has got such a free hand, right, where they can pass whatever resolutions they want. In 1 hour, he can erase that. And the other thing that I'm anxious about, is, and I blame myself in some parts for this, he is a narcissist. Part of the reason he enjoys conquering other countries is it inflates his grandiosity, right? Every time he gets wind of this show, Dean, or me talking about his dementia on the Daily Beast, and then the Daily Beast reaches out to the White House for comment, it enrages him. We actually know that the stories about his cognitive decline bother him more than the stories about any other topic.
Oh, interesting.
More than Epstein. More than anything. But what does he do when he's narcissistically injured? He needs to lash out. So I feel like there's some Venezuelan fishermen who are dead because of my podcast appearances, potentially. You know what I'm saying? like he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. What? They're talking about my cognitive decline again. We got to kill some people and make me feel better.
Dr. John Gartner is responsible for death of fishermen. We're making some news here. Well, Doctor, I think it's interesting the way that you break it down from a psychological point of view here, that whenever he has an injury, he has to lash out because that's who he is. And that makes all the sense in the world. And look, I share concerns 2026. We get the House, but we've learned he doesn't need legislation to do grave damage, especially on the international or foreign policy, where a president is getting so much leeway, even by our Constitution, to do things. It's very troubling. So, Dr. Gartner, before I let you go, where do you want people to follow you now? What's the best place?
Well, they'll just have to keep tuning into your show or the Daily Beast, or I've since I've ceased my own show, I'm just a journeyman guest now.
Well, we love having you on, Doctor. You're very informative and you give us a lot of insight. Not a lot of hope, but still a lot of insight. And, apocalypse is coming. Apocalypse now.
Apocalypse soon.
Apocalypse soon with Dr. John Gartner. Thanks, Doctor. Have a great weekend.